They say a man only digs his own grave once. But out there in the heat, with the desert sun roasting his back and sweat stinging his eyes, Thorne Whitmore had dug halfway to hell. Not because he wanted to die, but because he thought he deserved it. Each shovelful of dirt felt like confession. A silent sermon delivered to no one. No wind, no vultures, not even God. He paused to wipe the blood from his brow, unsure if it was his or just heat-borne illusion. His boots sunk into the dust beside the grave. It was deep enough now. For someone like him, 6 feet felt generous. He stood there a moment, staring down into the hollow he'd carved out of regret. There were no prayers, no last words, just silence and the weight of everything he'd failed to outrun. That's when he heard it. Not thunder, not wind, laughter, soft, childlike, impossible. He turned, squinting against the glare. And there, like a mirage, stood 5 little girls on the ridge above his grave. Their dresses fluttered like paper in the wind. Faces sunburned and hollow, but eyes sharp with something he hadn't seen in years. Hope. "You burying yourself?" one of them asked, tilting her head. Thorne blinked, lips dry. "Could be." Another girl stepped forward. Freckles dusted her cheeks like stars. "Well, you better stop. We need you." He laughed once more at Cough. "You got the wrong man. We got no one else." He looked again, realized how thin they were, how empty their hands. No adult in sight. Just those 5 brave, alone, and standing over a grave like they'd seen too many. And just like that, the weight of dirt in his shovel was nothing compared to the weight in his chest. "Where's your folks?" he asked. "Gone," said the oldest. "Deadrock Canyon took 'em." Thorne swallowed hard. And without another word, he threw the shovel down and climbed out of his own grave. He didn't ask names right away. Didn't ask why 5 little girls were wandering the desert like ghosts in worn-out boots and sunburned hope. Instead, he walked. Back toward his cabin, half-built, half-forgotten, just a mile west of where he'd planned to die. The girls followed, silent at first. Then the youngest one started humming. By the time the cabin came into view, crooked, leaning, but still standing, he turned. "You girls hungry?" They nodded. He didn't have much. Some dried beans, a crust of cornbread, old coffee. But he cooked it anyway, poured 5 tin cups, and watched them eat like wolves in silk dresses. Only when they'd slowed down did he ask, "You running from something?" The oldest, the one with eyes like burnt honey, nodded. "Men," she said, "from Deadrock Canyon. They were following us. One had a scar that split his cheek like a riverbed. Said he'd find us if it took all month." Thorne felt his chest tighten. Not from fear, but from something colder. Recognition. Deadrock Canyon. He knew that place. And worse, he knew the kind of men it spat out. They weren't trackers. They were hunters. "You telling me they hurt you?" he asked, voice low. The middle girl nodded. "They hurt Ma. Took her rings. Then they laughed." Thorne closed his eyes. There it was again. That old fire. That sick heat in the pit of his gut. The thing he'd buried years ago right beside the man he used to be. He looked at them, 5 tiny reasons not to fall back into that grave. "All right," he muttered. "Y'all can stay. For now, but we're gonna need water, wood, and a plan." The girls nodded like soldiers. And just like that, the cabin in the dust became a fort of the forgotten. A man with no reason to live, and 5 girls who'd just given him one. By morning, Thorne had fixed the front door, patched a hole in the roof, and fetched a bucket of water from the well he'd nearly forgotten he'd dug. The girls had names now. Cass, the eldest, barely 12. June, the quiet shadow. Lark, the singer. Della, always asking why. And Nixie, the baby with the stare of someone twice her age. He wasn't their father, wasn't even their kin. But as he watched them sweep dust from the floor, stack firewood, and feed the chickens that had gone half wild in his absence, he knew one thing. Sevens, they were his now. Late that day, he showed Cass how to aim his old Winchester. Her hands trembled, but her eye never blinked. "You shoot to warn first," he said. "Second time, you shoot to end it." She nodded, didn't flinch. That night, while the others slept, Thorne sat on the porch, Winchester across his lap, boots in dust. And he thought about Deadrock Canyon. It wasn't just a place. It was a scar in the land and in him. A memory of men who took joy in breaking others. And one name rose above the rest, Silas Creed. He used to ride with him. Used to be him. But that was before he saw what they did to a preacher's wife just for speaking Spanish. Before he turned on them, left one bleeding in the snow, and vanished like a ghost with a bounty on his head. Now Creed had likely caught their scent. Now he was coming. And when he did, Thorne wouldn't be the one in a grave. Not this time. He looked over his shoulder, saw the girls curled up on old quilts and hay. Then he whispered to the dark, "Sevens, if you're out there, Creed, come find me. I'm done running." The days that followed fell into a rhythm, if you could call it that. Thorne taught the girls how to chop wood, how to read the wind, how to listen to silence like it had a voice. In turn, they taught him how to laugh again quiet ones at first, like coughs he didn't expect. Cass took to the rifle. June could stitch a wound tighter than most men could rope cattle. Lark found a way to make the broken piano in the corner play again. Della asked if wolves ever changed. And Nixie, always watching, never missed a lie. But something lingered. A weight in the air. The kind of hush you get before thunder. One afternoon, while checking snares near the ridge, Thorne spotted a dark shape in the distance. Too far to make out. Too still to be a deer. He crouched low, hand on his knife, and waited. It didn't move. Not yet. That night, he told the girls to sleep inside. Locked the door. Checked every window twice. Then he sat by the hearth, staring into the flames like they held answers. In truth, he was remembering. The last time he saw Silas Creed, there was fire 2 burning wagons, a child crying in the dark, and the smell of blood on leather. They'd left a town in ash. Thorne had ridden away alone that night, but Creed had smiled. Now, a rider was out there. Maybe just a scout. Maybe not. He opened the floorboard beneath his bed and pulled out a wrapped bundle. Inside, a rusted star, a folded letter, and a Colt revolver so old it smelled of ghosts. He strapped it to his hip, not because he wanted to, but because he knew what waited at the edge of the ridge. And this time, he wouldn't face it as a man trying to die. This time, he'd stand as something else. Morning broke in silence. No birds, no wind, just dust shifting under boot prints that hadn't been there yesterday. Thorne walked the perimeter of the ranch. He counted the traps, checked for movement in the trees. Everything was still. Too still. Cass followed behind him, rifle in hand, trying to match his footsteps. "Someone was here last night," he muttered. "Are they coming back?" He didn't answer. Back inside, he gathered the girls. His voice was calm but sharp. "You only speak when I speak to you. Stay low. Stay together. If I say run, sevens." "We run," Cass finished. He nodded. Lark clutched the old quilt tighter. Della asked if the man coming had a name. Only Nixie said nothing. Just then, The wind picked up, and with it, the sound of hooves. It wasn't Creed. Not yet. Just a man in a trail-worn hat, slouched over a pale gray horse. He stopped at the fence line, didn't call out, just waited. Thorne stepped out, hand resting on his sidearm. The man raised one hand in peace. "Name's Cutter. I ride alone." "That's supposed to mean something to me?" Thorne asked. "No, but the name Creed might." Silence. Cutter swung down from his horse, slow and deliberate. "Creed's got riders 2 ridges over. He's hunting a girl. One that stole from him. One that ran." He looked past Thorne toward the house. "I'm guessing she's here." Thorne's face didn't change. But inside, something shifted. He nodded once. "Tell Creed, he's late." Cutter grinned. "Didn't come to warn you. Just wanted to see what kind of man stands between him and his prize." Thorne didn't blink. "You just did." Cutter tipped his hat, turned, rode off slow, like he had time. But they both knew time was done. That night, Thorne stood alone on the porch. The lantern beside him flickered in the wind. He held a crumpled letter in one hand, creased, weather-stained, written in a woman's hand. The kind of letter a man never throws away, and never reads more than once. Inside the house, the girls slept on bedrolls they pushed close together. Even in rest, they stayed near one another like they were still hunted. He thought of Cutter's words, of Creed's name spoken aloud again after all these years. There was a time Thorne might have rode off, let fate sweep the past back where it came from. But then Cass stirred in her sleep and murmured something about wolves. And he knew. He couldn't leave. By morning, the decision had hardened like ice in his veins. He handed Cass a second rifle. "Stay low. If I don't come back by sundown, you lead." She didn't cry. She just nodded like a soldier taking orders. Lark gave him a lucky button she found beneath the floorboards. Della braided a leather cord for his wrist. And Nixie stood silently and handed him the same tin star she'd seen him hide. "You still wear it," she said. He looked down at it. The edges dull, but the weight still the same. "I never took it off," he admitted. "Just buried it, like everything else." With that, he saddled the old horse and rode into the light toward Deadrock Canyon. Toward Creed. Toward the kind of past a man doesn't outrun. The canyon swallowed sound like a grave. Thorne's horse moved slow, careful. Each step kicked up ancient dust that had waited years for boots like his to return. Deadrock hadn't changed. Same red cliffs. Same broken trees. Same ghosts. He remembered where they used to camp the old fire ring half buried under sand. He remembered where they buried the bodies too. The ones Creed left behind. Near a dry creek bed, he dismounted, tied the reins to a stump and walked ahead on foot. He wasn't here to sneak. Not this time. He was here to finish it. He found them before they found him. 4 men, circling a camp, their laughter rising like smoke. Creed sat by the fire, coat draped across his shoulders like a crown. He hadn't changed much, same cold smile, same dead eyes. "Never thought I'd see you crawl back, Thorne," Creed said, voice smooth as oil. "I didn't crawl." Creed rose. "You come for the girl, or to settle what's owed?" Thorne's hand hovered over his belt. "I came to end it." The others chuckled, reaching for steel. Creed just stared. "You always were good at burying things. Let's see if you buried your nerve too." And then, like thunder, everything moved at once. When the dust settled, Thorne lay bleeding beside the fire. 3 of Creed's men were down. Creed himself crawled with one arm useless, mouth full of curses. Thorne didn't speak. He just looked up at the gray sky, like waiting for judgment. But it wasn't the end. A shadow stepped into the firelight. Cass, rifle in hand, her face pale but steady. "You followed me," he whispered. "You didn't really think we'd let you do this alone?" she said, kneeling beside him. She pressed cloth to his wound. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. "Let's get you home." Back at the ranch, days passed in hush. Thorne healed slow. The girls kept to his side, reading stories, bringing soup, or just sitting in silence. One morning, Cass stood by the porch watching the sun rise. He joined her, bandages still wrapped tight but steadier now. "Creed?" she asked. "Gone?" he said. She nodded. "So now what?" Thorne looked across the land, wide and empty, yet no longer hollow. "We live," he said. "Start something new. Together." Cass slipped her arm through his. And for the first time in years, Thorne Whitmore didn't feel like a ghost. He felt alive.